5:15, another day, another pursuit, but this one is different.
Yeah, we're following a U-Haul. Well, Skyfox is. Let's go to Stu up in Skyfox to give us the details.
Well, Tony and Roxy, good morning, and I love that intro there. Another day, another pursuit. That's almost what it is out here in Southern California, but, you know, it's a morning pursuit, so that makes it a little bit different. I think what you really were getting at, Tony, is that this is a U-Haul truck, and a big U-Haul truck at that. I was probably guessing 26-footer, and it's towing a trailer. Stolen vehicle, not sure how that works out, if this is somebody that maybe didn't return the vehicle, or it actually was stolen from somebody who rented it. Where we are right now, this is going to be the westbound 60 freeway. We're going to be South El Monte, kind of coming up on Rosemead Boulevard. California Highway Patrol, they are the ones that are tasked with following and trying to bring this thing to an end. If you're seeing some sparks coming out of the back of that truck right there, those that we're guessing that that's going to be some chains that are actually safety chains that are holding that trailer on there, or they're not holding the trailer on there, but they're safety chains, and that's probably what's dragging right there. Right now, this is a really big truck, and how is the California Highway Patrol going to bring this to an end? That's kind of the question. Slow moving, that's the one other thing that I can try to throw out there right at the beginning of this pursuit. You can see the miles. It was about 60 miles an hour. At one point, we almost thought it was going to come to an end during the commercial break. On the transition, we were northbound 605 when we made that transition to the westbound 60. It almost came to a stop. You know, it was in the teens. Right now, though, light traffic. We did hear California Highway Patrol talking about thicker traffic or more traffic coming up. They were talking about that, so it is a concern for them. As far as speeds and recklessness, well, you're seeing it. He's pretty much established there, or the suspect pretty much established there in that middle lane. California Highway Patrol, they've got a number of vehicles behind them. They're talking about things that they might be able to do, but right now pretty limited because of the size of that truck and the other traffic on the freeway. Guys.
Yeah, I can't imagine them, I don't know, but it seems to me it'd be difficult to do the pit maneuver on something like that. But beyond that, Stu, you point out the size of the truck. It is a huge truck. So, you know, this pursuit is even more dangerous in some ways than the typical ones we see, in that truck can do a lot of damage if there's an accident.
Definitely, and that is one of the major concerns right now for California Highway Patrol. You can see the truck even slowing down once again. I kind of wonder if maybe it's a fuel issue inside that vehicle, or maybe the driver impaired, but you know, right now 51 miles an hour, and the roads are pretty much wide open. You are right, a lot of times we kind of poke fun at these pursuits. They are, you know, it is one of the, sometimes it's the lighter side of news, but in this case that is really something that I was looking at when we first got here, is if this person was driving reckless with that size vehicle, you're right, people could lose their lives, and also you can't do a pit maneuver because he's towing that trailer. That would be, I couldn't see or couldn't even understand how the California Highway Patrol could do that to bring this to an end. A lot of times they talk about size of vehicles and the pit maneuver, and like, well, can you do a pit maneuver on a big truck? You know, any vehicle where you can push that rear end, just start it to slide a little bit, that's going to be, you know, that'll make that truck spin out. Will it flip over? And that one I'm not really too sure about, but that's all they really have to do with that pit maneuver, is kind of bump that rear end just enough to get that truck to start sliding sideways, and then that vehicle is going to spin around. The speeds, well, it does appear that they are speeding up a little bit all of a sudden again there. Traffic light right now, but this is westbound 60 freeway. We're making our way into the San Gabriel area. It is going to get a lot more dense out here, and you can see that vehicle still just kind of doing its thing. California Highway Patrol, they're doing what they do. They're switching out. I already saw another vehicle, one of them dropping, one of the California Highway Patrols dropping out, another one taking its place. As we're moving through their areas of patrol, they basically are going to be handing it off. How are they going to put spike strips out there? Well, they might make an effort, but right now it's basically just what you see right there. Warn the public, keep the public away from this vehicle, and it's going to be easier if he stays these slower speeds. Today we're having a little trouble with the Skyfox speedometer. He's definitely not doing 100 miles an hour down there, but as long as he stays away from the traffic, you know, that's going to be the thing that keeps the public safe. If he's going slow, like 60 miles an hour, the traffic ahead of him is probably going to move out, and then they'll be able to keep the traffic behind them from coming up. But it's going to create issues for commuters, that's for sure.
There's not a whole lot of traffic yet, so he's kind of, or he or she, we don't know who the driver is, but is just kind of cruising at this point. Did see a few, it seemed, black and whites behind this U-Haul. Can you give us a better sense as, you know, how they're following this U-Haul and what is it looking like up ahead?
Well, looking up ahead, there is traffic, and but it's like because he's going 60 miles an hour, you can even see that right there. One of the big rigs is actually passing the pursuit. So what's going on is the traffic is ahead of them is actually lightening up because there is less and less traffic because this vehicle is going slower. That might give them the opportunity to put a spike strip out there, and that would really kind of bring this thing to an end. That larger truck, those tires, it would really make it difficult for that big rig or that U-Haul, that 26-footer, to be able to travel or even maneuver. Right now, though, they got 4 officers from California Highway Patrol in their vehicles behind him, and again, very kind of erratic speeds out here, slowing down like almost, you know. And we've been, you know, we basically watch him slow down, and then he speeds up, slows down, then speeds up. There you go, another California Highway Patrol switching it out. So they're going to keep doing this till this thing comes to an end.
All right, Sue, so we're going to keep a watch on what's going on here from our eye in the sky. We're going to bring in Dennis Zine, retired LAPD. We like to talk to Dennis when things like this are going on because, of course, he provides other expert information on and perspective on what's happening. Dennis, this is a different sort of pursuit, I would imagine, that presents unique challenges. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, it definitely does. Size of that vehicle traveling down the roadway definitely presents problems. I assume it's stolen, and what cargo they have, I don't know if we've determined what is in that particular truck, but it does present a lot of challenges. Problems for the officers, problems for the public, problems for people on the road. Using that vehicle to ram something would obviously be pretty easy. That plus the trailer. I don't think that type of vehicle, the spike strip, would be very effective. So hopefully something will happen prior to a collision, but the officers will continue with the pursuit, continue getting other units involved. I don't know if law enforcement does have an air unit overhead. I know that Skyfox is overhead, and oftentimes other stations work together as far as coordinating. But the roadway looks pretty quiet, and there's a good part on a pursuit on a freeway is you don't have pedestrians, bicycles, parked vehicles, etc. You don't have cross traffic, so it's relatively easy. Then you have the traffic congestion, which oftentimes will happen at 5:22 in the morning. Pretty light right now, but I think it will be, if it doesn't come to an end soon, as the traffic starts to build on the freeway. Then we have some problems and some consequences if that individual decides to ram a vehicle or decides what they want to do. Obviously, you have enough units involved, enough CHP units involved. So in this particular situation on the freeway at that speed, it's not an excessive speed as we see. They'll hold on. They'll just continue with that, and they'll transfer units as they go to different jurisdictions. I just tuned in, so I don't know how long it's been going. But obviously, if you want to have a pursuit, this type of vehicle, the freeway is much easier, much safer for everyone involved, and obviously bring this to a conclusion as quickly as possible and as soon as possible.
Well, what are some of the options? Some people who are watching this are thinking, well, why don't they just, you know, do a pit maneuver? Is that even possible on a vehicle like this? Why don't they somehow stop the pursuit on its tracks? Like, why do we have to wait until, I don't know, the car runs out of gas? What are some options that the police officers have?
Well, they have certain procedures and policies that they have to follow. And number one, with this size of vehicle, you're not going to be able to do a pit maneuver on a vehicle this size. You also have to concern yourself with the safety of the person who is in the stolen vehicle. You've got to concern yourself with that. What is in that cargo? Are there people in there? Are they transporting people? What type of goods are in that particular vehicle? Do they know? So they have to just sit tight and watch and observe, get air units involved, which is important to have that coverage from the air. But at this particular time, you don't see excessive speed and you don't see traffic. So it's kind of like sit back and hold on. Hopefully an individual will come to a stop or jump out and abandon. But the problem is you're talking about a large vehicle We don't know if they have determined, I don't know if they determined what is in the vehicle, what kind of cargo's in the vehicle. That's all this is of concern. So there's a lot of factors. They'll just sit tight and they'll hold on, and hopefully the person will come to a stop eventually. But they're not going to do a ram. I doubt if they'd use a spike strip on a vehicle that size. Not very effective. So right now they're just going to hold tight, and as we see, the traffic is extremely light, which is a benefit for everybody. But once you get into the morning traffic on the freeway with a vehicle this size, there's no telling what happens. So it's a concern about safety of the officers, of the public, even the people who are operating the stolen vehicle. It's a concern for their safety also.
Okay, it's hard to see exactly what's going on, but it looks like the vehicle is now exiting onto the 5 freeway. So we're keeping an eye and close tabs on what's going on. Obviously, Dennis, we still see the cruisers tracking this vehicle. At one, he's on the 5 North, or she. We're not sure, what the gender is. But at what point, if, say, for instance, and we've seen this happen, the driver starts to drive erratically, at what point do the cruisers say, let's just back off for public safety considerations?
Well, that'll be a concern. That'll be a concern. The supervisors who are involved in this will say, okay, it's getting too dangerous. Let's back off. Let's terminate. Let's do a tracking mode. Let's do whatever we have to do to preserve public safety. We can always monitor from the sky, have units that can apprehend when that vehicle does come to a stop. But ultimately, the safety of the general public is paramount. And we've seen of late many pursuits where there have been some tragedies involved. They don't want that to happen. So obviously, with the use of air units, which we have sufficient units from the local law enforcement, the county sheriff, the highway patrol, the media, the air units. I mean, we can keep track, especially a vehicle this size. It's going to be very, very difficult, not impossible, to hide a vehicle this size. So there is the opportunity to observe and wait till it comes to a stop. It's going to run out of gas eventually, but they don't want to jeopardize public safety. A vehicle this size colliding with a passenger vehicle would be very, very dangerous. So we don't know what their motivation is and intention. I don't know, Tony, if they determine what cargo is in that particular vehicle. There's a lot of possibilities for that also. So they need to determine that.
Yeah, that's interesting that you brought that up, the fact that we don't know what is inside of that vehicle. You also brought up people, which I hadn't thought about. But yes, you're right, as far as if they come into contact with this U-Haul, and we have no idea what's going on inside. So out of safety and precaution, they're just kind of hanging back. And at this point, it's kind of like a watch and wait. Dennis,
exactly.
Stay on the line for a moment. Let's bring in Stu so he can just kind of update us on where we are right now. Where are we located?
Well, we're northbound 5 freeway, and we're getting up to Boyle Heights. We're coming up to USC County General area. While Dennis was there, I got some time. I'm watching on Facebook. Getting like the questions that a lot of the folks at home, because Roxy, you brought it up. It's everybody's got to do those armchair. Why aren't they doing this and why aren't they doing that? A lot of the questions that that I've been seeing down there is pretty much just that. And why aren't they blocking traffic in the front and trying to slow that vehicle down? Well, that's a large vehicle, and that could possibly ram one of those officers' trucks or vehicles, so that would put officer safety in play. And then also, they don't want to block this vehicle in, because then all of a sudden that driver, that suspect, could use that vehicle as a weapon, and that puts that actually puts that suspect in a position where he might do something or she might do something to injure an officer or themselves. So that's the reason why they don't do that. If you're looking at the speedometer this morning, it is a little off, and everybody knows, anybody on the freeways in Los Angeles, if you're going 54, there's an issue. And in this case, that vehicle is moving so slow that there is really no traffic in front of it, because all the traffic in front of it is moving at freeway speeds. So the officers right now, they're in trail. We did just watch them do that swap out again from the East LA units to the South LA, the downtown Los Angeles units right there. But basically right now, all they can do is kind of follow behind. I heard Dennis say that the spike strip's not in play in this one. Well, we'll see. There's a good opportunity for them to actually try to deploy them, and just bringing those some of those big tires, make those big tires flat on that truck. That's going to bring that thing to a stop or help that process. One of the other things too is I've been noticing on Facebook a lot of people commenting that a lot of U-Hauls getting stolen, and what's up with that? And then somebody actually says they work at U-Haul says they actually get that a lot as well. Not sure if this is one of those ones where just isn't returned, or perhaps it is full with somebody's belongings. We really just don't know. Right now, though, we're still northbound 5 freeway. We're actually leaving the Boyle Heights area, so we're getting over by Dodger Stadium. The 110 freeway is going to be an option here in a moment or two. But you can see that vehicle. You know, the word meandering comes into mind. It does seem like it is just moving very, very slow on the freeway this morning. If they continue on the 5, even at these speeds, as we get up into the Los Feliz area, out there by the out by the 134, it's really going to start getting backed up. And I am personally concerned, even though this vehicle's been moving slow, nothing very reckless. I'm just kind of going to get worried when he gets around other vehicles. That is a huge truck, and because he's driving so slow, you just got to wonder, is that driver all there? So anyways, that's where we are, and that's what's happening. Guys?
All right, it's 5:30, and for those of you who are just joining us, welcome to Good Day LA, and you are tuning into breaking news right now. We have a stolen U-Haul truck, a big one, as you can see, that also has a trailer attached to it. It has been going on now for quite a while. It is on the 5 freeway near Dodger Stadium right now. We have Stu Mundell up in Skyfox keeping track of things. We also have retired LAPD officer Dennis Zine on the phone. And Dennis, I want to ask you about the swapping out of officer cars. Why did they do that? Why did they bring in new ones? Why do others trail off? What's going on with that?
Well, when they go through different jurisdictions, the state, like the local cities, we've got Los Angeles, and then we've got Downey and Beverly Hills, and Culver City, et cetera, different jurisdictions. Well, on the state highway, there's different jurisdictions that cover the state highway system. So what they'll do is go from one jurisdiction to the other, so they'll switch off. Or vehicles running low on fuel, that's why they have multiple vehicles involved in these pursuits, so someone else can then take over. But when they travel for great distances, say you go from San Francisco down to San Diego, you're going through different jurisdictions, and they'll switch off. Someone will then terminate, and then they'll continue with other units from other jurisdictions from the state. So, in other words, if you're in pursuit in San Francisco and you're heading south on the 5, there are going to be a number of switch-offs as they continue southbound. So they keep them within their local jurisdictions. We're not going to take a unit from San Francisco and send them all the way down to L.A., so they do that as they travel, because the state is broken up into different CHP offices. And also the cars, as they're running low on fuel, these officers have been out there working the graveyard shift, so their fuel may be low. So they want to make sure they've got a fresh unit in there in pursuit, continuing with this. And they have backup units that will switch out. So normally when they go from different jurisdictions, from the West LA, the Santa Fe, whatever the case may be, and they've got the state broken up into different color codes for the different offices that the CHP runs throughout California.
Okay, Dennis, stay on the line, and we'll continue to chat with you. Let's go to Stu. Just taking a look at this. It's 5:33 in the morning, obviously, so traffic is light, but that can quickly change, and it can become a very different scene in a matter of just a few minutes, really, because traffic will pick up. Talk a little bit about and show us what it looks like. It doesn't look very crowded from this vantage point, and we do see the black and whites trailing the U-Haul.
Well, that's right, and right now we're still northbound 5. We're passing the 2 freeway. Didn't take the 2. You see that's kind of in the center lanes right there, so that's going to put us in the Atwater Village area, Los Feliz, depending upon what side of the freeway you're on. California Highway Patrol still just basically trailing behind, but they might be trying to do something else. And, you know, you were talking about that, about the light traffic. Well, one of the reasons is that truck is moving so slow that the traffic that was in front of it has basically just moved on. It's way far ahead, and the California Highway Patrol, that vehicle is actually doing its own traffic brakes because it's moving so slow. The officers are not allowing any of the vehicles behind it to basically pass, so it's creating its own type of traffic brake. Also, California Highway Patrol, we know, Vinny was just pointing it out with his pictures just moments ago, they are blocking some of the on-ramps until this passes, so that's actually creating, like you said, a very open freeway. This could give them the opportunity to possibly do a spike strip type of situation. That'll be the only thing that they might be able to do. Looks like we're exiting right there. There's going to be Los Feliz Boulevard. So this is going to take a little bit of a turn here, and not to do a play on words, as we're getting off the freeway. This is going to be an entirely different type of situation. If we're on the roadways, much more narrow, that's a big truck. Also, one of the things that has been in play and discussion up here, maybe one of the reasons why that vehicle moving so slow, maybe that's it. Maybe that vehicle is so loaded that it's unable to move any faster. We saw this earlier on at the transition road, dropping down into the teens as he's making his way on that off-ramp. Maybe he's trying to make a decision. Maybe that vehicle just can't go any faster.
Well,
but again, this is going to take a change here as we're getting off the freeway.
Okay, so he's getting off Los Feliz Boulevard, the northbound 5, right? So if he goes right, he's traveling more towards Glendale, and if he goes left, he's traveling more toward Hollywood. And it looks like he's going to be going toward Hollywood.
Yeah, and you know, this is one of those ones where if he doesn't just get right back onto the freeway, this is going to be, it's going to get really tight. Los Feliz, big road, but all the others, all the little offshoots, it gets really, really tight unless he gets onto Vermont or something like that. This also changes the whole dynamic of this pursuit. Looks like we are just getting back onto the freeway, which I'm saying it really, truly is a sigh of relief. I worry with that large truck and these indecision and that slow moving, it really kind of makes me feel like that driver not super confident, which could be good or bad, but you just don't want a vehicle that size doing anything erratic. Like you said right at the beginning, somebody could really get hurt with a vehicle that size involving it in any kind of collision, especially if this person is fleeing from officers. You know, you just don't want to see that. Right now we're making that big old turn, getting back onto the 5 freeway, and I'm looking at it, I'm thinking we are going southbound, so we basically just turned around. We might be heading back to where this thing started. We've seen that so often in the past. But again, stolen U-Haul truck this morning, right? You know, creating havoc on the freeways. It's going to be commuter issues, and you'll see it. Like right now, the South 5, pretty crowded as he makes his way on there. But if his speeds are about 50 miles an hour, all the vehicles that are on the freeway are just going to keep on going, and the California Highway Patrol is just not going to allow anybody to pass that vehicle. So it's going to create traffic issues, but it's also going to open up the freeway, and it's going to keep the public safe, which is a relief just watching these chases.
Let's go back to Dennis for a moment. I know, you know, we have no way of knowing what the driver is doing or thinking, but oftentimes when we do these pursuits, we end up seeing the drivers go to areas they're familiar with or to neighborhoods that they feel more comfortable in. Right now we saw, you know, majority of the chase has been on the freeway, but we did see the driver for a moment get off the freeway, back on the freeway. Talk a little bit about what goes into the psychology of the person who's being pursued and your own experience.
Well, they're all bizarre. Each situation is totally unique. In this particular area, and I don't know if it's been determined what cargo is in that U-Haul. Has it been determined from the person who reported?
No, we don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
They could be smuggling people. There could be drugs. There could be all types of situations when you've got that. And it's unusual. I mean, it's a large vehicle. It's a large U-Haul, but then with the trailer in back, the intended purpose of that, or did they steal it from a lot when it was still unoccupied, when it was still empty? Those considerations. You don't know what is in that as far as cargo. That's a concern. Are there explosives in there? There's all types of possibilities, but what they'll do is now we're getting into an area, and Stu's going to know from watching overhead, as you get closer to that central part of Los Angeles downtown, traffic starts to build up with the freeways. You're on the 5, but there's many freeway options as you continue southbound where that vehicle can go and create a lot of havoc. But I'm sure the concern of the officers, whoever made the initial report to law enforcement, what cargo is in that vehicle? I mean, what are they transporting? That's a critical concern. And for that reason, unless you know, there's a concern about the safety of the general public, safety of the officers. Are there chemicals in there? Are there people in there? Who knows what's in there? And that's a concern to make sure that it's all done in a safe manner. But now we're getting into an area at this particular time, 6:38, going up on 6 o'clock, as that southbound 5 starts to get congested as you're entering the downtown area. I know many commutes I've made on that roadway, it comes to a stop. And as Stu knows from watching traffic in L.A., as we get closer to that hour with people getting back to work now, these roadways, right now it's very, very clear, but it won't take that long for that to start clear to turn into congestion. And then you've got a problem with the vehicle. Is it going to start ramming other vehicles? Because that's a large vehicle. What cargo is contained in that is a very serious question. Whether it's hazardous materials or it's an empty vehicle, with that speed that it's going, mid 60 mile per hour, and it's a heavy vehicle, so maybe that's the maximum speed it can go. Is there cargo inside? But what's going through the officer's mind is, let's get this to a stop as quickly as possible. Let's preserve public safety. They may go into a total tracking mode. They may just pull back and say it's getting too dangerous. And as we see many times, the tracking mode, and they'll track from the air. The ground units will terminate the code 3. They'll just follow the safe distance, and when it finally comes to a stop, apprehend the individual or individuals. We don't know if it's a male or a female. Again, what cargo is inside that large trailer. It could be many, many things. Could be very hazardous. It could be empty. So there's a lot of possibilities. And as far as coming to an end, when it gets into the traffic condition that we're going to find shortly on these freeways in the downtown metropolitan area, it gets bogged down real quick. It's not like it was a few months ago when traffic was light day and night. People are getting back to work, and we know the freeways are starting to get congested more and more. So there's a lot of issues that are being considered by the officers. And again, there's a supervisor who's monitoring, who's making sure that it's safe. Ultimate concern, public safety, concern for the motorists on the roadway, concern for the officers, concern for the individual who's stolen that vehicle. There's a lot of considerations that are taken in at this particular time. But right now, it's still clear on that southbound 5. And as we get closer and closer to the commuter hour, and we're getting up to that, where it's going to start bogging down with a lot of traffic. And then you've got the concern of what we're going to do, how we're going to apprehend this individual. Are they just going to abandon the vehicle and take off? We've seen that happen. So any and all possibilities, but they've got to consider every option. And again, the concern I have right now is what cargo is, or is it empty? Is it an empty U-Haul? Because that could contain a lot of whatever they want to put into that vehicle. That's a large truck.
Yeah, that is the great unknown, exactly what is in that vehicle. And obviously the safest thing to have happen here is if the driver gets an attack of conscience and pulls over. Since that doesn't seem to be the case, certainly at this point, one of the other options is that the vehicle actually runs out of fuel. Dennis, this truck, I would imagine, holds a lot of fuel, or can hold potentially a lot of fuel.
It does. It does hold a lot of fuel, and those multiple tanks normally, and it can go a long distance. It gets terrible mileage, probably less than 10 miles per gallon, I would say. I've used those before in transportation. So if you're looking less than 10 miles per gallon, but again, they've got large tanks, and these are the type of vehicles that go coast to coast when they're moving large items. This is not a small U-Haul. This is a medium-sized U-Haul truck. Again, what is a trailer? You don't see oftentimes a U-Haul with a trailer on back. And was that parked? Is that loaded? Is someone moving and this individual stole the vehicle? There's so many possibilities, and the officers have to consider everything. But the bottom line for everyone is safety. Safety of the public, safety of the officers, safety of the the person who stole the vehicle. And safety of ultimate concern is for everyone's safety. Let the courts deal with what they need to deal with, get it into custody as quickly as possible, but bring this to an end before someone gets hurt. Because the longer it goes, the stronger possibility something's going to happen where someone's going to get hurt, a collision, multiple vehicles involved. Again, this would be a great ramming vehicle if you want to ram cars because of the size of the vehicle. But I know we talked about spike strips. I really don't see that happening as we start to build more and more congestion, especially on a freeway, to have that opportunity to make that happen. Running out of gas would be ideal, or just pulling over and surrendering would be ideal. But the question is, we see that camera shot, what's inside that? That's a large vehicle. What cargo is being contained in that vehicle?
Hey, Stu, let's get a locator for you. Talk a little bit about where we are right now. Also, can you guys zoom in a little bit? We're seeing some stuff there in the trailer attached to the U-Haul. We're trying to make out what those items are.
Well, it looks like it's just trashed in there in that trailer. That's what we were doing just a moment ago. Actually, we were also trying to figure out where that truck was from. We always look at the U-Hauls and the artwork on the side. It is a 26-footer. We were guessing that earlier on. Now we got the confirmation because it's written right there on the side. Southbound 5 freeway. We're looking at, they just said it, I'm sorry about that. They just said committed to the southbound 5 freeway. So we're over here at the interchange. We're basically back in the Boyle Heights area. We've been listening to the California Highway Patrol, professional, calm, and very relaxed about this one. They are working, trying to bring this to an end. They're trying to figure out where would be a good place to do that spike strip, if they can do that spike strip. And then they're also concerned about that chain that's dragging. They're talking to the officers ahead saying, hey, you know what, if we do this spike strip, just beware that there's a chain dragging behind. We don't want the officer to be holding on to that spike strip and have a problem. So they are coordinating, they are working, and I just realized all that stuff that I was telling you. In the past, through social media, I've been criticized saying, hey, you're giving away the secrets. You know what, right now I just have a feeling that whoever's driving that vehicle, not on our Facebook right now or communicating, so I don't think they really know what's going on. And also, between you and I and all the public, I don't even know where they're planning on doing it, but they are talking to other units, and they are trying to set up a way to bring this thing to an end. Also, they've been asking about an airship. Apparently right now the California Highway Patrol, wherever their helicopter is, unavailable, and they're wondering if the LAPD could join in. But right now, because of weather minimums, and I'm thinking that they might not be able to launch. So these are just things that are going on with law enforcement right now. As far as the pursuit goes, you can see it. It's the same thing. The vehicle's moving so slow that there isn't really a lot of traffic in front of it. They're creating their own traffic break, but it does seem like it is picking up a little bit more speed today, southbound 5 freeway, and we're basically leaving the Boyle Heights area, or just kind of established right now, East Los Angeles. But the chase itself, it is picking up just a little bit of speed, which worries me personally, because it's been driving so slow. I don't know what's changing inside that cab or why that person's becoming more desperate. Tony, you said it. I say it 1,000 times too. You just want this thing to come to an end. You want that driver just to really just pull over, go into custody. You don't want to see anybody hurt, not that driver, and definitely not anybody around that vehicle. But, Dennis was talking about it. We brought it up too. Just don't know what's in it. It seems like trash in the trailer, and it doesn't seem like, just making an educated guess. It doesn't look like moving stuff. It looks like whoever was using this vehicle was using it for some sort of industrial use. So again, we're keeping an eye on it. Southbound 5 freeway, creating a little bit of traffic behind it, not that much traffic in front of it. We'll keep an eye on it. We're coming up to another interchange here. What looks like right now, we're going to be staying on the southbound 5.
Well, it's interesting, Stu. I can't help but notice, and I'm sure you guys up there have observed it as well, the stark contrast between the traffic on the southbound side of the 5, where the pursuit is actually occurring, and the northbound. If this were happening on the other side of the freeway, it'd be a whole different pursuit.
It would, and you wonder if maybe that whoever's driving that is one of the reasons why he kind of picked this. I'm going to turn around and go back the other way. That might be some of the issue. You can see right there, just at that little transition at the 710. Other vehicles making their way on to the freeway. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just transitioning. But the California Highway Patrol right there, you can see it. They're trying to get those other vehicles not to pass the pursuit vehicle. That little white car right there with the black roof. He's going to squeeze by. Everybody else has kind of got to get behind this, and that's what we're talking about. It in a way, this vehicle moving so slow is actually making it safer for the public, because the vehicles in front of it, they're just going to go off to their California 70 or California 65, whatever you want to call it, and the vehicles behind it, well, they're just going to they're getting stuck in this traffic break that's being created by that vehicle and by the California Highway Patrol. Just saw that too. He kind of was indecisive on those lane changes. Again, you can't know what that guy or girl is thinking in that cab right now. But when they start doing like weird things like changing lanes and drifting around, you know they're trying to make a decision. They might be on their phone. Who knows what, maybe talking to somebody, maybe looking for traffic. Who knows? But right now, the California Highway Patrol, they're still working to bring this thing to an end. They're not just driving behind them with their lights and sirens on. I read somebody saying something like that a moment or two ago on Facebook. That's not what's going on. They really are trying to figure out a way to stop this vehicle and stop it safely.
Dennis, as you're watching this, is there anything that strikes you that's unusual from past
What's up,
experiences, or is pretty much everything going the way it usually goes?
And normally, and Stu knows from the time he's been covering pursuits and the time I've been in pursuits for so many years, the one thing in common is they're trying to get away. And they know that the police, the Highway Patrol following, and they think that they'll be able to find an escape, whether they're going to abandon the vehicle. We've seen sometimes they just stop abruptly on the freeway and then take off on foot, all types of situations, or the cargo that they have inside, or is it empty? So there's a lot of considerations, but as far as the individuals who are in that, is it one vehicle, two vehicle, male, female, etc., what's in the trailer, what's not the trailer, but what's in the bed of the truck, I mean, what are they transporting, or is it all empty? So all those factors, but the officers want to take it into custody as quickly as possible. They're not going to abandon the pursuit. They'll follow the safe distance as we get to that point. But as we see, as Tony mentioned, traffic in the opposite direction is the commuter traffic, and I'm sure there's a lot of traffic, and maybe Stu can show a shot of the traffic that's building up behind this that has been slowing down, and you shouldn't be passing. You should not be passing this vehicle, passing the law enforcement vehicles that are in pursuit. I noticed earlier when people were passing the vehicle just in the fast lane. You don't do that. You stay behind, stay out of the way. There's no telling what this individual may do. They could stop abruptly. They can go swerving back and forth. They may blow a tire. All types of possibilities. You want to stay away from this and not pass the vehicle, because if you then get in front of the vehicle and slow down, you could get rammed by that vehicle. There's no telling what this individual is going to do. So safety of the public is paramount, but safety of the officers, safety of the individual who's stolen the vehicle. But there's so many questions that are unanswered. What is inside that vehicle? What is it empty? Is it contain something? Is it hazardous? Are chemicals, whatever the case may be? Are they transporting people? Who knows what it is? But there's definitely a concern. If it's empty, on the speeds that currently like in the almost 70 miles per hour, in the mid 60, 70 miles per hour, they may not have a heavy load in there. But there's so many different considerations. But the bottom line for the public is stay away from this and don't pass the vehicles that are in pursuit, the CHP vehicles that are there. They're trying to keep it clear for everyone's safety.
Okay, so Dennis, a couple of new developments here. LAPD has joined the pursuit with an airship. So we now have a helicopter from the LAPD that has become part of this pursuit. So if, in fact, those cruisers decide that it's best to back off at some point because the pursuit has become much too dangerous to public safety, obviously the LAPD would be able to track this pursuit from the air. So that is a good thing, and it's something that you mentioned. Also, we believe that this U-Haul is now in the Buena Park area, which is where we believe this pursuit actually started to begin with. Obviously, and you pointed this out a little bit earlier, that the longer a pursuit goes on, the greater the potential for danger, because the fact of the matter is, even though the speeds have been low here and the driving has not been erratic at this point, you don't know what the driver is going to do, and at any point, he or she could decide to do something totally unexpected.
That's true. That's very correct. But what we know is that now with the LAPD chopper overhead, and they do work in coordination with each other between LAPD, Sheriff's Department, Highway Patrol. If the Highway Patrol doesn't have an air unit up, as LAPD has a number of air units, they can assist with that. You'll see LAPD ground units. They're not going to engage in the pursuit directly, but they will be in the vicinity when it comes to a stop, because the LAPD chopper will be coordinating this from the air. And again, we've got the media overhead. So eyes on this for a long period of time. It will continue until this comes to a stop. But what we have currently is that you notice there's no traffic in front. I'm sure there's traffic behind. But the fact is, as we come up to 6 o'clock, you're going to have a lot of traffic on that freeway. And just because this vehicle is breaking that the traffic mode because of the distance between, but I'm sure if we get a shot behind, there'll be a lot of traffic that's building up that's heading on that freeway. So as it continues down the road, as we continue on this path, LAPD assisting now with the air unit, I'm sure there might be some ground units that will then, they're not going to engage in the pursuit, but they may be in the close proximity. Right now, the longer this goes, the closer we get to 7 o'clock and the traffic build up, so many unpredictable situations, and the questions will continue. That's how we're going to bring this to an end. As we see, the traffic is building up behind, and they need to stay behind this as the pursuit continues down to 5.
I was just wondering why the CHP wouldn't shut down travel so that cars aren't trailing this stolen U-Haul. Would that be an option? Is that even realistic?
Well, they could do that, but there's no need for that. There's no need to block the traffic behind. Let the traffic continue. As long as this vehicle is in motion and they're continuing down the road, to block it and then we're 10 miles down, we've got a blockage for no reason. They just want to keep people away from this and get this U-Haul in a place of safety where they can apprehend, take the individual into custody. If this comes off on the surface streets, there'll be LAPD units that will then assist in that. But the primary is going to be CHP, and they'll stay with that until it comes to an end, or they decide it's become too hazardous and to just go to a tracking mode. Again, with the air unit overhead, there's very, very little possibility, and as we know from the past, very seldom do they ever get away. As we see the traffic in the opposite direction, it's heavy commuter traffic. We don't see anything ahead, as Stu's mentioned, because the vehicle is going so slow, traffic ahead is clearing out. But if you look behind, you're going to have a large buildup of traffic, and hopefully this will get off the freeway and people can get back to normalcy.
All right, Dennis, hold tight. Apparently now a new development here. Stu Mundell, we're going to bring you back in here to talk about where we are with things, and it looks like the U-Haul has transitioned to the 605 South.
That's correct. Southbound 605, we're in the Studebaker area, and it's doing that slow transition like it has been in the past. And Araxia, here's your answer right there. It's kind of what you were just talking about. They can't really shut down the freeway. It would, and like Dennis explained, that would be, it would be way too much work, and then you just don't know where he's going. But again, there you go, in that little blue car, doing what Dennis Zine and all law enforcement basically are saying. You don't pass a law enforcement vehicle with their lights and sirens on. I think it's in the DMV handbook, for gosh sakes. But at any rate,
common sense. It's just common sense, Stu. It's common sense. You just don't do it.
You just don't do it. And so every time we do one of these little transitions there, and I, again, while you guys are talking, I'm looking on Facebook and watching what people are saying, and there's a lot of that, and I agree. It's like if I'm going to work in the morning and I see that little window of opportunity, I'm going to try to get by. I don't want to get stuck in the traffic, but that's basically what's happening right now. That vehicle's moving. I believe is wrong. We're about 50 miles an hour. There we go. That's about right. We're about 50 miles an hour, southbound 605 freeway, and it's creating its own traffic break is what's happening here. All the traffic is moving much faster. The 605 ahead of it is wide open, and as Vinny goes a little bit wider and just kind of puts the truck at the top of the screen, you might be able to see some of that traffic because they're creating a cushion, that they, meaning the California Highway Patrol, are going to be creating a cushion back there. But then all the traffic that is basically just joined the freeway there, and the traffic that's on the 605, that's all getting kind of backed up, and they're basically going the speed of the pursuit, if not a little bit slower. This is good in the sense that the public is being safe, or is allowed to, is safer on the freeway this morning. I'm looking up ahead, and I'm dumbfounded to see a completely almost empty southbound 5 freeway as we're coming up on the 105 right here. But it's all because of this pursuit. This would be a good spot to throw out that spike strip, but its coordination is what it seems to be the issue right now. And now they have they got LAPD. They have their helicopter, and as Dennis brought up a couple times, or Officer Zine, has brought up a couple of times, they might really truly just do we'll go into tracking mode. This vehicle hasn't done anything too erratic. The driving's been slow, if anything. Lane changes have been, controlled. There hasn't been that much erraticness going on. But, there also might be something we don't know. There might be some information about who is behind that wheel. Maybe this person has wants or warrants. Maybe there is a little bit more to the story. It's not just a stolen U-Haul. Somebody also mentioned, on social media, this is a burglar's dream come true. You don't have to go and break into somebody's house. They got the whole house in the truck, and that might be why it was stolen. All these things, well, that'll come out later on in the end. But right now, we're still in pursuit. It's going to be California Highway Patrol. Slow moving indeed. U-Haul truck, heavy, possibly loaded, and wide open freeways. And that's not because of traffic just being light this morning. That's because this vehicle moving so slow, the traffic behind it, that's going to be really, really thick. If you're taking the 605, getting out, I know it's going to be tough not to watch the pursuit, but if you're getting out to your car right now and the 605 is where you got to drive, if you're going southbound, you're probably going to get stuck in some traffic. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, Stu, we are approaching the 6 o'clock hour here on GDLA on this Tuesday morning. If you're just waking up, good morning and welcome. We've been following this slow pursuit of a stolen U-Haul for, I don't know, has it been 45 minutes that we've been on here? At least, right? So losing track of time here. So we're following this. Basically, what we know so far is that this began in Buena Park. That is where the U-Haul was stolen. That is what's being reported. And then Buena Park police asked for CHP to take over, and we've been following this for the last 45 minutes or so. We don't know who the driver is, a man or a woman. We don't know what's inside of this U-Haul. We do see a trailer obviously attached to the U-Haul. It looks like that's just trash behind it, but it's just been a little bit, you know, not very exciting. It's going slowly. Not much is going on, but we're just waiting to see when this driver either stops and gives up or runs out of gas.
All right, so we have a couple things going on here. First of all, this is a very unusual pursuit just because it involves a very large 26-foot long U-Haul truck that is actually traveling with a trailer attached, and traffic has been light so far, so the driver has pretty much had free reign on the freeway. We have a couple of actually team coverage of the pursuit right now as this U-Haul transitions to the 91 freeway. Stu, set the scene for us. Tell us what's going on, where this truck is headed at this point, and then we'll bring in retired LAPD officer Dennis Zine, who is also providing commentary and perspective on this pursuit.
Yeah, we're just doing the transition right now, Tony. It was just confirmed. Eastbound 91 freeway. So we're in the Bellflower area. We're just coming off the 605 onto the 91. There you go again. Really slow on those transitions. We did confirm one thing in the meantime. LAPD, their helicopter was here just moments ago, and they had the vantage point down low and looking in that cab, and they confirmed just the driver. Still haven't heard male or female. So just the driver in the cab, and they mentioned it just like that. They said in the cab, just probably playing it safe. You don't know, maybe there's somebody in the back, but the odds are it's probably just the driver in that U-Haul. They are swapping out California Highway Patrol. They probably heard us a little bit earlier on talking about maybe needing a helicopter. I don't think they needed our prompting, but they are here, and so they are swapping out. LAPD's helicopter is going to say goodbye, and CHP is joining this pursuit this morning. And we are established eastbound 91 freeway. This is going to be the Artesia freeway, and just like we watch on every other transition, the California Highway Patrol kind of blocking the traffic that's transitioning with it, or the traffic that was already established on the 91. Slow moving pursuit, you know, you said it, not very exciting as it would be, but still moving along out here. California Highway Patrol doing their traffic block, so there's going to be some slowing, but as we're making our way eastbound, you mentioned it, I didn't know that. I'm saying, and thank goodness that you guys brought it up. Buena Park is where this started. We've seen this so many times in the past. You know, pursuits start somewhere, they run one direction, and then for some reason, they always run back to where this thing started. We could be heading there. That is more than a possibility. As far as the California Highway Patrol, they are working to possibly bring this to an end. They have to weigh it out as well. It's all about, you know, the risk versus the outcome. You know, do they want to throw a spike strip out there? Are they able to do that? Is it safe to do that? All those decisions. You know what? Thank goodness I'm in a helicopter just looking at it and talking about it. I wouldn't want to try to make those decisions because, you know, people could get hurt, and that is what this is all about. That's one of the reasons why the California Highway Patrol is behind this vehicle right now. It is stolen. There's a bad guy or bad person inside there. You know, they did steal this vehicle, so they want to get that person into custody. But while that's going on, they don't want anybody to get hurt. They don't want that suspect to get hurt. They don't want the public to get hurt. And heaven forbid, a law enforcement officer gets hurt as well. So right now, they are just in trail. Their lights and sirens are on. They're keeping the public away from it. We're just moving along, nice and slow, about 50 miles an hour, eastbound, 91. And we're just going to keep following along, and we'll see where it goes. There's that shot I was looking for. Thank you, Vinny. That is the traffic behind it. And this is basically just the traffic break that's been created by the actual pursuit itself.
All right, let's bring in Dennis Zine, if we have him on the phone still, to give us perspective on.
No, I wasn't going to bring up.
On exactly how this has all been going. It's been going on for the better part of an hour now, maybe even longer, Dennis, at this point. Nothing dramatic, overly dramatic has occurred. I guess that's the silver lining here, if anything.
Well, the silver lining would be no collision, no one hurt. It's still continuing at we would consider a reasonable speed in the 50, 60 mile per hour. The truck can only go so fast due to the weight of the vehicle, the engine capacity, but it's relatively safe. It is a pursuit. It's a stolen vehicle. It's been reported as a stolen vehicle. The question is, and as we've seen, it's driving in a manner that is safe within the limit of the law, but the truck is limited in its speed due to governors that they put on those vehicles. So it's not going to, you're not going to see it at 70, 80, 90, 100 miles per hour as we see some sports cars, but it's relatively safe as far as the speed goes. If it hits something, could be devastating because of the large size of that vehicle. Unknown what is inside, what cargo, if any, is inside that vehicle. So there's a lot of unanswered questions. The CHP's in control. The freeway is a nice, clear path. You don't have cross-traffic, pedestrians, bicycles, etc. Anytime you have a pursuit, it's much safer to be on a freeway than on a surface street. So as this continues, and with Skyfox overhead monitoring this, I think we've been on now over 30 minutes, if not 45 or so. I have no idea what time it started. I got a call. I was sleeping, and here we go, another early morning pursuit. But it's safe as far as the speed of the vehicle, as far as when it's going to come to an end, going to run out of gas, getting a collision, bail from the vehicle, as we've seen in past pursuits, any and all possibilities. But the CHP is in control. Their helicopter is now overhead, along with the media and sufficient ground units, and they've changed out some of the ground units, gone through different areas. So it's one of those situations where you're now sitting back, you're in control, you're monitoring, and the public on the roadway needs to stay away from it, and hopefully in short order will come to an end. Suspect will be in custody, be a code 4, and everything gets back to normalcy. But right now, we're still at that critical point as traffic continues to build up, and this driver was up in the Los Feliz area. Now it's back in the southern eastern part on the freeway system, and there's no telling where it's going to stop, when it's going to stop, and we'll continue monitoring it and giving commentary along the way.
So this is a 26-foot U-Haul truck, as we've mentioned. This is the largest truck that's available for rental. This is typically obviously used for moving for most people.
A whole household.
Yeah, they said
could potentially fit in here.
3 to 5 bedroom home.
There you go.
Exactly. So, you know, we've been talking a little bit about this and speculating, Dennis, and your concern was, and I don't know if it still is a main concern, what is inside of this U-Haul?
The concern, yes, absolutely. It hazardous materials, chemicals, we have no idea. Or was someone moving and this vehicle was stolen with the household goods inside the vehicle? There's so many possibilities, but the concern for the officers, public safety is the ultimate concern. It could be explosive. There's a multitude of items that could be in that, or it could be just empty. It's interesting that there's trash in the trailer that's following, that's being towed by the vehicle. Where did the trash come from? Or is it just an abandoned vehicle that was parked in the lot, or someone was getting ready to move and it was stolen? There's a multitude. Whoever made the report to local law enforcement, they're going to know what is in or what was in, and hopefully the officers have some idea. It was totally empty, or there was a household of furniture and the people were moving out of state. So we have no idea to determine that, but there's a concern to the officers. What is in that vehicle? What's contained other than the driver? Apparently there's just one driver, one suspect. But again, what's in there is a big question, and I'm sure whoever made the report knows, at least at the time they made the report, what was in there. Hopefully the officers are aware of what cargo, if any cargo, is being contained inside that vehicle.
All right, Dennis, we'll get back to you in a moment. We're going to bring Stu in again right now to again set the scene and tell us where we are with this vehicle and this pursuit at this point. Stu.
Well, we're still on the 91. We're eastbound. I'm looking out the window. That's going to be Fullerton Airport, so I'm guessing we're in the Fullerton area. The 5 freeways coming up. There's it's a huge transition up here. And it looks like he's not taking the 5 freeway. We were just talking about the Buena Park issues. You know, we were talking about it started in the Buena Park area. Now it might be going back there. A lot of times, you know, the reason why they go back is because they ran, and then they realize, well, you know what, I want to run to a place that I know. And if it started in the Buena Park area, you just kind of figure, that guy must be from Buena Park. So at any rate, that might be one of the reasons why they make their way back over there. Everybody is, I'm keep looking for those spike strips. I don't think it's going to happen just because of logistics. California Highway Patrol, they are still down there. They're still following it. They're creating their, the pursuit itself, because of the speeds, is creating its own traffic break. As we cross through here, that's going to be the 5 freeway. It looks like we're staying on the 91 inside Skyfox. I know that you don't want to make the news about yourself, but in this case, we're watching this pursuit, but this is something that's going to affect it. We are getting close to the Disneyland TFR, so there is a possibility that we might not be able to keep an eye on it because of weather this morning, and also that TFR, that's a temporary flight restriction. They put that up over Disney, and we might not be able to actually stay with it, just kind of putting that out there for our producers as well. Right now, though, we are good at this moment, and if he stays on the 91 and doesn't, if we just stay on the 91, we'll be good. Let's just leave it at that. As far as the pursuit goes, we know one person driving that vehicle. That was confirmed by LAPD. They made it very clear in their verbiage, in the cab. They know that there's just the driver in the cab. The odds that there's somebody in the back, probably not that high, so it is probably just that driver by themselves. I'm kind of curious. I'd like to know if this was reported stolen, if this was a late return type of situation, because a lot of times a U-Haul will be declared stolen by U-Haul when it's not returned, or whoever rented that vehicle, they can't get a hold of them, or however it goes, and the vehicle has not been returned to a U-Haul drop-off, so it becomes a stolen vehicle. That could be the case here as well. We just don't know those answers. As for what is in the trailer, if you're just joining us, it really does look like just trash. We were looking at it earlier on. It looks like just regular old trash, but a lot. Oh, there was the spike strips. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I'm sorry, I got so excited. But they definitely did toss those spike strips off. And it looks like he must have known what's going on there. He's right off to the right lane. Looks like we're going to be getting off the freeway here at Euclid. So definitely use those spike strips. And I'm hearing them saying that he did hit them. Now, we know from the past, it isn't like in the movies where the tires explode and there's sparks. And these are basically nails that are hollow that get stuck in the tire, and it releases the air slowly. So we'll see how effective those spike strips will be. Definitely went by the trailer, though, so some of those trailer tires might be taken out, making a nice slow turn there, and definitely that was the side where they were thrown out. So we're going to keep an eye on that front wheel. That's going to be the driver front, and of course any other tires on that vehicle. Looks like we are just getting back onto the freeway right now, just making a U-turn, but you can see the driving becoming a little bit more aggressive. And this does worry me.
This is Anaheim, is that right, Stu? Is that where we are?
I'm sorry. We were at Euclid and off the 91, and I can get you that.
Yes, it's
yeah,
Anaheim.
We're going to be in Anaheim, basically Anaheim, Fullerton area. Yeah, definitely.
All right.
So speaking of the driving, so generally sticking to about 55 miles per hour on the freeway. At one point, I think we saw the driver go 75 miles per hour, but for the most part, driving slowly. I mean, this isn't an easy thing to drive. It's difficult to maneuver, especially if you're not used to it. But this.
The front wheel.
Okay, so we're hearing that some smoke is coming out from the tire on the right, so that would be the passenger side.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't. Right now, they have other aircraft coming in, and they're asking us to bump it up and move farther away. We're in controlled airspace over here, so it's going to make it a little bit more difficult. Vinny's trying to get a better shot of that front wheel, but if we could maybe move this way as we climb, because we're going to be going westbound on the 91, that'll keep us a little bit closer to the actual pursuit itself. It's way up over there. So at any rate, the spike strip definitely successful. There's no doubt about that. That smoke coming off that front wheel and probably some of those rears, that tire completely gone as we're making our way a little bit closer to that actual vehicle itself, the pursuit vehicle. But yes, this is the point now. I am very happy to see no traffic around it. Even the California Highway Patrol moved their way a little bit farther away from that vehicle, probably for safety reasons. You mentioned it. You're right. It is a big vehicle. They are rentals. They are designed to be easily or they advertise them as, you know, easy to drive, but there's no, that's a big truck. That's a 26-foot truck.
Yeah.
And now with one tire missing on the front wheel, it is going to become even more difficult to control. So as soon as, you know, as long as there's no other vehicles around it, there's a good chance that you can't. It's not a good chance. You just can't crash into anything. But right now, though, you can see that vehicle, one tire completely gone on the front there, and but the driver's still pushing it, and the freeway, we're eastbound on the 91. We got off, so we're getting back over to the 5 right now, and the chase continues. California Highway Patrol, they're in the spot now. If this thing comes to an end, hopefully it doesn't turn into a standoff, but it does seem it's going to be pretty safe for the public right now, as there are no vehicles with him on the freeway.
All right, so a couple of things that have occurred here. A spike strip was deployed successfully, it appears, as the right front tire, passenger side of this truck, has now been deflated, and it looks like the truck is pretty much, when it comes to that right tire, on the rim. So that means that the truck is going to be a lot more difficult to control. The speeds are going to be probably kept at a minimum at this point. Dennis Zine, so it looks like this pursuit could come to an end soon. But then Stu brought up the possibility, and we've seen this happen in the past, that there could be a standoff. Tell us what happens if that occurs.
Stu, you called it right on the spike strip. I was questioning whether they're going to do that or not, and the officer that deployed that obviously exposed to hazard, but fortunately that happened. What's going to happen is it's going to slowly come to a stop. How long that's going to take, it shouldn't take that much longer. As we know, it's going to be running on a rim. But oftentimes, these vehicles will continue. You'll see it catch fire. The fire then erupts on the wheel well. It's going to come to an end rather quick. But after the spike strip is deployed, now you've lost a tire. It's deflating. You're running on a rim. It's going to start smoking. It's oftentimes to catch fire. It should come to an end pretty quick now. You're tearing up the asphalt, running on a rim, but the fact of the matter is, as we see the freeway is vacant, they've locked that block down. It's going to be coming to an end, it looks like, real quick, but that truck's not going to continue.
I'm sorry to interrupt
moving.
you, but yeah, actually the driver's side tire, the left one as well, has deflated. So now you're running on
two rims.
Two rims.
Two rims. So you got metal rims on the pavement. You don't have a lot of ability to accelerate with speed because you've lost that ability to move. This individual obviously doesn't want to surrender, but you're going to see it. Normally it catches fire. As we see the smoke start to build, oftentimes you'll see fire then as it continues with the pavement. And oftentimes you're going to be tearing up the pavement as you're moving down the freeway. But slowly it's going to come to an end. I mean, the speed right now, it's in the 30s. You're not going to be able to have 50, 60 miles an hour and control the vehicle because now you're losing capacity to utilize the front wheels to make your turn. So going straight, you can do that. But what happens now, it starts to deteriorate more and more as you're running on the rim because the rubber's gone, the tube's gone, and now you're strictly on the rim.
Now, so clearly, and this truck is traveling at this point in the mid-20s when it comes to miles per hour. So it is not unreasonable, given what we've seen with regard to the behavior of this driver so far, to think that there's a good possibility that once this pursuit comes to an end, and we don't anticipate that it's going to last much longer, certainly we hope not, that we could have a standoff. And what happens then?
Well, then take the next phase. Then we've blocked down the freeway, got to block down the area. Are they armed? Are they not armed? Are they going to surrender peacefully? Do we send in a K-9? What do we have to do then? Do they have a weapon? Are they going to come out shooting? All possibilities. So the officers will come to a stop. They'll hold the traffic. They want to keep the public away. The person can come out with a weapon and start shooting the officers. I mean, there are all kinds of situations. The officers will deploy in a safe fashion. We've got enough number of units there. that have sufficient firepower to take an individual into custody. If it gets to that point, hopefully it'll stop. They'll get out, put their hands up, and take it into custody. But they could stay in the truck. They don't want to exit the truck. So you got the standoff. Then you got the negotiations that take place. This could last a long time, or it could end real quick. Hopefully they'll get out, surrender, take the cuffs, and on their way to jail. But there's no telling. But you notice there's no traffic behind. They're holding that traffic behind. The CHP has got that blocked. So they want to have a clear area where they'll be able to maintain control without endangering the public. So this comes to a critical point as far as taking the person into custody, because you got a nice clear freeway, at least on one side, or the person could jump out and bail across the freeway. As Stu knows, we've seen every scenario you could imagine happen during these situations, especially when it's coming to an end. They're not considering, what am I going to do? Am I going to get out? Am I going to surrender? Am I going to give up? What am I going to do? Are they going to run? What am I going to do? Stay in the vehicle? Are they going to negotiate with me? Are they going to send it? There's all kinds of possibilities. So it's a big question mark as far as how this individual's not taken into custody. Basically, it's in their hands to decide, let me surrender peacefully, or let me put up a fight.
Speaking of negotiating, when does law enforcement make contact with the person driving the vehicle, the suspect, and in most cases, and try to negotiate with them? Are they perhaps on the phone with him or her right now?
They could be, but what they'll do is the loudspeaker from the vehicle order the person out. If they're on the telephone communicating, if that's a possibility. If not, they'll use the loudspeaker on the vehicle. They don't want to approach too close. They have to maintain the same distance. Consideration, the person could be armed. If the person's armed, who knows what they want to do. Or they could just have stolen the vehicle and they're going to surrender peacefully. Stop, get out, surrender. We've seen all types of situations, but the officers have to err on the side of caution to say this person is possibly armed. You always have to consider, are they armed? If they're armed, I have to maintain the same distance and keep the public at bay, keep them away from the situation, because you got the cross traffic on the other side of the freeway. The individual could then jump out of the vehicle and run across the freeway. There's all types of scenarios that we've seen over the years, how these come to end.
All right, let's bring in Stu Mundell again. Stu, so we have a very slow-moving stolen U-Haul truck at this point. Both front tires are blown as far as we know. And where are we, and what seems to be happening here at this point? Doesn't look like, from this perspective, very much.
Not very much right now, but that was a huge change. It was a game changer for the chase itself. Those two tires going out, the California Highway Patrol jumping out there doing that spike strip. They were, believe me, they were trying to set that up for quite some time. And I appreciate Dennis with his comment, but the reality is I've got a little inside going on up here as well, so we kind of know what they're talking about down there. Valley View, that's going to be the next off ramp that we're coming up on, is going to be the westbound 91 freeway now, over by the Knott's Berry Farm area. I don't think that's what's on that driver's mind right now, but you can tell that vehicle moving much slower. And we keep talking about the guy behind the wheel. Was this a crime of opportunity? How or what or why? Right now, all those things, we'll try to figure that out later on. Personally, I'm just hoping that either he gets off the freeway and brings it to a stop, he doesn't stay on the freeway, or he brings it over to one of the emergency lanes and just basically gives up. There is so much traffic now on the 91 freeway westbound behind it. Vinny had that shot earlier on. You can see a big break right there. That's from the California Highway Patrol, and then all these poor folks that are basically stuck in this pursuit traffic. They are basically going the speed of that vehicle, if not slower, and it's going to be creating quite a havoc for a lot of folks trying to get to work this morning, or whatever your destination may be. The 91 freeway out here, not a good take, especially westbound, as this U-Haul continues to just kind of drive. We've been watching him kind of make his way back and forth there on the lanes, going from the number 1 lane all the way over to the far right. I don't think it's a control issue. I think it's more the driver probably in there just trying to figure out what he wants to do. Maybe he's on the phone down there. If he is, whoever he's talking to, I hope they're just doing the look, just pull over and just bring this thing to an end. You're really, it's becoming a point of almost inconvenience to a lot of these folks out here. There's always that danger level, the officer's eye there, and that is, that really is the mentality of all officers, is safety. That is their first concern, and they always have to, plan, expect the worst in a type of situation, and maybe that person is armed. We're watching this right now, and a lot of folks at home are, we just like, oh, it's just some jerk driving a U-Haul staying away from officers, but you just don't know. That person might have a lot of priors. That might be, like they said, an armed suspect behind that wheel. So that's what all officers always have to think about is, the worst scenario. Plan for the worst, hope for the best. And in this case, right now, the California Highway Patrol, they've basically got this vehicle, 2 flat tires. Even if it can continue to push on, there are possibilities, like they said, things are going to start getting hot. Dennis brought that up. Things are going to start getting hot underneath that, on that front wheel situation. There could be a fire. That vehicle might overheat. There's a lot of possibilities, but right now this thing's still going 18 miles an hour out here on the westbound 91, and coming up on Carmenita. So if you're in this area or planning on the 91 this morning and you're watching this pursuit, you might want to just sit here and watch it a little bit longer, enjoy it with Tony and Araxia and Dennis and I, because this thing is going to be going so slow, and the traffic behind it is just basically backing up and building up and building up. Right now, you can see it, that front wheel the tire is actually still on the wheel. I thought it came off earlier on just because of the amount of smoke, but basically what that is the heat from the tire, and it's still holding on. So this is a big truck. Those are basically semi wheels on there, so those are big tires, and this is a rental, and they these are non-professionals usually behind the wheel, and they basically build these things for safety. So those are the pluses in there, but we're slowly coming to a stop, and I just hope it doesn't become a standoff out here on the freeway, because it's going to create a heck of a traffic problem. Right now, though, it really seems to just be crawling along out here, and that truck just, and again, don't know if it's the truck, don't know if it's the driver, but we do know the speeds are basically getting into the 10 mile an hour, so this is going to be extremely bad for anybody commuting this morning here on the 91 westbound.
Well, you know what? We've just gotten some new information, Stu and Dennis, thanks to our own Gigi Graciette, who's been working her sources. We now know that this truck was, according to Buena Park Police, was actually stolen out of Irvine, interestingly enough. So that's where all of this happened. And at some point, apparently, not long after this truck was stolen and reported stolen, they were able to box the truck in, law enforcement, but somehow the truck was able to outmaneuver law enforcement officers back up, and that's when the pursuit actually started.
Oh, wow. Well, that's the type of information, Chi-Chi's awesome. And, that's the type of information that officers had, and that might be one of the reasons why they were treating it the way they were treating it. This vehicle apparently, gave officers a slip. I'm doing the air quotes, but, that it's still very dangerous. That vehicle, if an officer was out of a car and he backed up, it could have been a lot different. Right now, that tire, look at it. As soon as it comes off, the only thing I can say is that it will be even more difficult to control that truck if that tire actually comes off. Even though it's flat, you've got a little bit of traction right there. When that tire is completely off, you're just steel on the asphalt, and that's going to be dangerous. You can see him kind of swerving. It's like slow motion swerving as he's, please don't stop underneath the bridge, because then we can't see what's going on. But you can see it really coming to almost a stop now. That one tire that we've been keeping an eye on the passenger side looked like it was almost coming off, and now that vehicle, there he goes, he's peeking out the other side. But you can see it is really kind of, and again, we don't know, is it the driver, is it the vehicle, but it does look like we are slowly coming to a stop out here. This is going to be the westbound 91 freeway. There he goes. Thank you for the machine. Bloomfield is the actual cross right there, but you can see it really starting to creep and crawl, and that driver, clearly doesn't want to go into custody, but the reality is that's where this is all going to end up. Hopefully it just doesn't inconvenience too many people this morning as the traffic's really starting to build. But you can see that tire. If it comes off, it's going to just make it more difficult to control that truck. It's probably going to be a lot louder in there as well. But right now I can imagine there's a lot of noise inside that cab. But this vehicle continues to push along out here. California Highway Patrol keeping the public safe by keeping a distance between them and the actual truck itself. But 16 miles an hour on the freeway, ouch, that's just painful.
Well, I have to say I'm a little surprised it's still going. We're watching it crawl along, but it is still going on those two rims. We are getting some new information, Stu and Dennis, that according to law enforcement, there is one driver inside of this vehicle, and it is a male driver. So that much we do know. And again, this began in Irvine. That was another bit of information we just received. Dennis, how do you think this is going to end?
Well, it's going to end, hopefully, with the suspect taken into custody in a code 4, and Stu can give us some view of what's happening with the surrounding area. I mean, you're going to have a traffic mess, number one. If the individual then surrenders peacefully, or if there's a standoff, and then we've got to sit there and go through the procedure and the negotiations to coax the individual out. It started, obviously, what we now learn in Irvine, and apparently the officers responded, and somehow this individual slipped away in the truck, and then subsequent to that, this long pursuit that's taken a long time with Stu overhead and you folks in the studio and the public watching, and they need to get to work, or they need to get to their destination. It's going to end eventually with the person taken into custody. Whether they decide to abandon the vehicle and take off, as we see happen, whatever happens, but they have sufficient ground units, they've got air unit overhead, they'll get this individual into custody hopefully as quickly as possible, because it's coming up on 6:30 in the morning, and a lot of people are on the roadway, and we want to clear those as quickly as possible. But the concern is this person armed? This person already slipped through law enforcement, as we now learn. So, and what is the cargo? The officers somehow have to know by this time what cargo was in that particular vehicle, whoever made that initial report. So it's just going to be a standoff until this individual, hopefully they'll surrender, get out, get into custody, and we can put an end to this. But I speculate that with what's gone on to this point, it's not going to end as soon as we hope.
Now, we want to make sure that we have whatever facts we have straight. Again, the facts we've been able to bring to bear on this pursuit comes through the excellent investigative work by Gigi Graciette. The pursuit didn't actually start in Irvine. That's where the truck was stolen. It was stolen out of Irvine, but Buena Park police were the ones who actually got involved with the pursuit part of it. The truck was able to somehow escape the law enforcement officers who had surrounded it, and now for the last, hour and a half or so?
At least
we've had this going on that looks like it's about to come to an end soon with
the
that
pursuit
truck.
side, at least.
The pursuit side of it, yeah. While this truck is traveling at times under 20 miles per hour. Stu, where exactly are we?
Well, we're on the 91 freeway. We're still westbound. It's going to be the Norwalk Downey area. We've been watching this thing, and I was just thinking to myself, the rental company U-Haul. I don't know if their guys are watching, going, look, you can drive this thing with flat tires. Why do you have to pull over and call us all the time? I'm just kind of playing with it. California Highway Patrol, though, they are not playing. They really are starting to talk about how they're going to handle this if and when this thing comes to an end. Traffic, or the movement of traffic, is one of their big concerns, oddly enough, and they are really backing up the Artesia freeway this morning, especially the westbound lanes, as this vehicle moving in the teens. That tire, we've been watching it, and this is like the big drama right now. Is it going to come off the rim or not? It's basically just shredding itself right there. We have information that both the front tires are flat, but we can see that the passenger one definitely just you can see it right there, thumpy thump, and it just coming apart slowly as they're just continuing continuing on. That truck really probably pushing itself. We've been wondering if that driver is not been going faster because the truck could not go faster, or if it was just the driver being cautious, in the long run. Right now, though, is he pushing that thing? Is he have his foot to the floor? How's it going in there? You just don't know. But those are the factors that are actually going to bring up part of this, what's going on down there. Looks like that tire finally just really, or another big piece of it just coming off. I didn't see it come out the back there, but now we're seeing less tire, more rim, and there he is. And that tire stopped. I don't know if he's actually on the brakes or what's going on there, but that rim is actually stopped. So that wheel, or what's left of the tire, basically jammed itself in there, and that wheel is actually stopped.
And there are
so
the
now
sparks.
he's basically just skating along.
Too.
Yep. Yeah, just skating along down there. Yeah, and this could create a fire. This could create a fire underneath the vehicle, especially with that tire down there, or this could go on for a while, and that rim could just be grinding itself down to the point where you're on the axle, and that's what's going to bring it to an end. So clearly the driver is pushing that vehicle the best they can, but that front wheel, the actual wheel itself, stopped right now, probably because the rubber has wedged itself in there somehow, because he's clearly not on the brakes. But, basically right now just skating along the 91. That's basically the way to talk about it. And we're going to definitely, look at that. The heat that's being generated right there, something's going to catch fire. There you go. Whatever it was broke free right now, and you even saw the driver, react to that. So the rubber, whatever was jamming it up, probably melted or broke up, and now we're rolling once again. But wow, this driver, now we're starting to learn that this driver really pushing it. It is not the vehicle that's giving up. It's the driver that's just continuing to push this vehicle this morning. Now he's down to the rim. We haven't seen any erratic driving. But clearly, if he starts to try to turn, this thing is not going to turn well at all. And yes, of course, there's a little bit of fire down there on some of that fiberglass. That, concern, something to watch, definitely. Is it going to bring this is that going to bring it to an end? Right now, I would say no, but we've been wrong in the past, and I'll probably be wrong in the future. But right now, we're just going to keep an eye on it. But wow, that things are really changing up, and you're really starting to learn more about the driver just by watching, being an observer. This guy's, he's pushing that truck, just basically biding his time, trying to stay away from getting those silver cuffs. And right now, is it dangerous? Well, if he starts to drive off the freeway or starts to try to maneuver that vehicle, we're going to see a lot different type of driving, especially if he tries to turn it. That truck is going to go straight well before it starts to turn.
Stu, is there a way to, do the windows, I can't tell, are they tinted? It's kind of hard to make out. Is there a way to zoom in and maybe we can get a better look?
Well, Vinny is, he is a true professional, and I love having him on the camera. Pushing in right there, trying to get a look at the driver. Take a look at that little bit of fire down there on the, actually by the rim. That might actually be something other than just the fiberglass. There's oils down there. There's brake fluid. That tire jamming up down there, it could have created a lot of damage, could have ripped the brake line open, and now he's actually spewing a little bit of oil. And also, if it is a brake line that we're actually looking at that's burning, or that's the oil from the brakes, you got to think it doesn't work wheel to wheel to wheel. All the wheels work off of one reservoir, so he might be losing brake fluid. That's also going to add to this the drama. He won't be able to stop this thing, so you won't be able to turn and you won't be able to stop, at least with the brakes. I'm sure there's other ways you can try to bring this thing to a stop, but that fire definitely not going out. I wouldn't have guessed that, but the little bit of fire down there definitely growing. And you just got to wonder what the fuel is that's keeping that fire going right there. And you can see it just kind of hanging out there on the backside of the rim. If it does stop, is that fire going to just basically catch fire to the wheel well? Is the fire, or is it just oil? But definitely parts of the tire still coming off there. A little bit of rubber now just fell off. So we're going to, the only thing I can say is we're watching. I'm really starting to wonder what's going on. And of course, we know that this vehicle disabled, definitely disabled. disabled, definitely going to be much more difficult to control. And maybe that fire that we're seeing right there is actually the tire. What's left of the tire is burning. We know that we've seen it in the past. Tire fires, they burn for a long time. Once they get started, it's hard to put it out. But right now, those flames continue to get a little bit larger and larger, and I'm just really curious what it is that's burning.
Well, you know, Dennis, as we bring you in on what's going on here, clearly we now can call into question the mental state of this person, the state of mind. Clearly, this truck has been disabled, as Stu has pointed out. We have a fire going. This individual, he knows exactly what's going on here. He knows that he's being pursued. He knows that at this point he's facing mandatory behind bars time, not only because of the stolen vehicle, which is a felony, but also because of fleeing police, which is another felony on top of that. So we have all of that going on. This truck is clearly disabled, difficult to control, can only go a certain speed, and yet this driver is being persistent in his refusal to stop.
Absolutely, and one thing that I want to point out is those fuel tanks for that truck are close to the tire. I think the fuel tanks, if I'm not mistaken, are right near the cab of that truck. It's not in the rear of the truck. I think it's near the cab, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a potential for that, tearing up the roadway, in addition to everything else that this vehicle is doing with the driver. Obviously, doesn't want to get apprehended, doesn't want to go to jail. It's going to happen eventually. And as we see the vehicle continuing, and we've seen this happen in the past, where they continue to run on a rim and ultimately come to a stop because the vehicle cannot run continuously. I've seen them go all the way down bare metal, and then nothing will be there. And as we see happening on the right side, I don't know what the driver's side looks like, but the right side, obviously, we've got the totally on the rim, which is tearing up the roadway, at the same time on fire, whatever substance is there. And it's just a situation where the individual doesn't want to surrender, doesn't want to give up, wants to continue, but all it's doing is accumulating more and more charges. And I'm sure if we look at the history, this person probably has been through the criminal justice system in the past. This doesn't look like a first-time offender that would act like this. And the hazard to the public and the inconvenience to the public that everyone's experiencing right now in that particular part of Southern California, where they can't get to their destination no matter which way you're traveling on the freeway. It's a mess right now, and they just want to bring this to an end, take him into custody, impound the vehicle, give it back to the rightful owner, and code 4 and on with life. But
Dennis,
this individual does not want to give up.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we do have Buena Park PD on the phone right now. Sergeant Mario Escamilla is joining us this morning, and we do know that the U-Haul was stolen out of Irvine, but where this pursuit really began was in Buena Park. That is when your department took over. So can you just tell us what happened?
Yeah, so the Buena Park Police Department received information of a suspicious vehicle in the area of Knott and Selma. Officers responded, and as they responded, they conducted a records check and determined the vehicle was stolen. They noticed that there was an individual sleeping behind the wheel of the vehicle, so they tried to contain the vehicle. Unfortunately, the vehicle managed to maneuver away from the officers, at which point slow-speed pursuit ensued.
And do we know anything about this vehicle other than it was stolen out of Irvine? Do we have any clue as to who might be driving it? And do we know at this point what cargo might be inside that truck, which I would imagine you guys would be very interested in, Sergeant Escamilla?
Unfortunately, we do not have any of that information, which makes it all the much dangerous. And that's the reason why we have to take so much precaution when trying to apprehend these individuals and hopefully render a safe ending.
Sergeant Escamilla, as far as you know and what you've just indicated, there is only one person inside of this vehicle, correct? The driver, who you indicated was sleeping behind the wheel when officers first approached this individual.
That is correct. We have received information that there was a male sleeping behind the wheel when officers responded. That's exactly what they saw. And we have no other indication that there are any other occupants inside that vehicle.
All right. Do we know whether the suspect is armed at this point, or is that also unknown? And it looks like at this point, this truck is going to come to a stop pretty quickly. It's traveling under 5 miles per hour right now. I think that whoever is inside that cab understands that that you can't keep pushing this truck given what's going on.
Yeah, so there's no indication that, that the individual is armed.
Did the officers make contact with the individual as far as speak to him, and what was that like? Was he aggressive? Did he indicate anything? What were you able to gather from the scene?
So it was pretty quick. They did not speak with the individual based on what we know right now. Like I said, they were trying to contain the vehicle and ultimately tried to safely contact this individual, but during the course of doing that, the individual backed up the vehicle and maneuvered away from the officers and led them on a slow-speed pursuit.
Now, we know that this vehicle is on the 91 freeway traveling west as far as we know. Is Buena Park PD still the lead agency here? What is exactly your involvement at this point? We know that that's where the pursuit began, but where are you jurisdictionally at this point with regard to what your agency is involved in?
So at this point, we initiated the pursuit. We are not currently pursuing the vehicle. As soon as it got onto the freeway, we relinquished the pursuit to CHP, California Highway Patrol. And based on what we know now, California Highway Patrol is still pursuing the vehicle. So if in fact it does come to an end, we will respond or coordinate with CHP to take apprehension of the suspect.
So the suspect then would ultimately end up in your custody?
As of right now, it looks that way, but other things could transpire to dictate otherwise.
You don't know who this individual is, correct? There has been no information as far as any background to this person.
That's correct. We have no idea who this individual is.
What about the company itself? Has it been able to provide you with any information, since we know that the truck was stolen out of Irvine? And look, the fire now has erupted a lot more now, and I don't know how this truck can possibly continue.
That person's going to need to come out of that truck
much longer. I mean, this is a really dangerous situation. I don't know if you're actually watching this as you're commenting on it, Sergeant Escamilla, but this clearly is going to be coming to a close here soon. I mean, it has to. I mean, the fire has gotten really bad here. So you really don't know much at all about this, and the company hasn't been able to provide you with many details, I'm assuming.
That is correct. Unfortunately, we know very little about this individual and the circumstances surrounding it, other than its stolen vehicle being driven by a male. We do know that the vehicle was originally stolen out of Irvine, and a report was taken by the Irvine Police Department. During the course of our investigation, we'll actually be contacting the Irvine Police Department and working with them as well.
All right, we have a full-on fire here. Stu, pick it up. Tell us what's going on.
Well, we're just watching, and you guys watched it live here as well. It's like that fire really started to pick up. Something changed in there. This is actually, you can see all that black smoke. That's going to be some sort of fed fire, meaning there's oils or something burning. That means something is cut loose underneath that truck, meaning an oil line or a brake line. We're moving Skyfox around a little bit. Those trees were blocking us in moments ago. But the deal is that fire is very well established. If this truck comes to a stop, that fire is not just going to be blowing back like that. It's actually going to start getting up underneath that engine. That suspect is going to need to get out of that truck almost immediately. He's continuing to push this thing. Also, everybody's been pointing out the gas tank is on that side as well. You kind of hope, and we all know, that the designers of these vehicles, they understand these things and they actually set things up so that it is safe, or as safe as can be. But this truck really starting to really kind of push it the best they can to keep going, and you just don't know why. Look at that smoke. This is what I'm talking about. As soon as he stops, he's got to get out of that cab. There you go, popping the door open and trying to run from this. But this is one of those things. You can run. We'll keep an eye on him. The truck is going to be a total loss. And he's actually right over the fence right there. He's got to know he lost his shoes. No, that's a shame. Anyways, grabbing his backpack, he's going to continue to try to run. Officers from the California Highway Patrol keeping an that must have hurt. And losing his pants and his shoes. At any rate, the officers, they might be a little bit slower on the jumping over the walls and stuff, but definitely making their way around to that to the area where he's running to. Now between the walls there, we're going to try to move Skyfox the best we can to keep an eye on that suspect. The truck itself, I'm pretty sure, almost fully involved in flame, and I'm just wondering if any of the California Highway Patrol are going to be trying to put that fire out. Vinny, can we just go look at the truck since we can't see that suspect here for a minute or two? Just go a little bit wider, and he's not that far away. Over to the left. There you go. Somewhere right in there where the smoke is. Just kind of push in to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right. There we go. Anyways, that truck itself, I'm not sure where they parked it, but it's somewhere in that area right there. Must be fully involved in fire. But again, you just gotta wonder if maybe some of the California Highway Patrol made an effort to put it out. But apparently, they're chasing after that suspect right now. We're going to move around, and I can see the officers. If you go wide and to the left.
Oh my goodness! Well, the cab is fully involved in flames at this point.
Fully involved, and you knew that was going to happen. That fire was really well established, and the flames were basically the movement of the vehicle was keeping that fire from getting up under that hood. And as soon as he stopped, all that fire just basically engulfed that engine area. Again, we know, everybody knows, there's a lot of oil, there's a lot of flammables, there's a lot of plastics involved right there. Officers on the top of the screen to the right, I'm listening to them right now. They're trying to coordinate. They've basically got a perimeter set up. I haven't heard the words in custody, but that's the apartment building where we last saw him running against basically against that wall right there. If you pan up, pan up just a little bit, and to the left, right there in the gap. I think he's right there in the corner. Push down, just pan down just a little bit, Vinny. Pan down, pan down. It's a motorcycle. All right. But yeah, so that was the area where we last saw him. But the officers definitely in the area right now, and basically setting up a perimeter. They haven't caught this guy as of yet, but you're just hoping that guy's going to go into custody. That truck, a total loss. I'm not sure why the California Highway Patrol not working to put out that fire. A lot of them carry fire extinguishers. Okay, firefighters are just arriving, so they're going to handle the truck, and the law enforcement going to try to get that suspect into custody.
All right, so at this point, it doesn't appear as though the suspect is going to be able to get away. It looks like law enforcement is setting up a perimeter so that they can take this person into custody. The last time we saw the guy losing articles of clothing and as
shoes,
such,
pants,
as he was jumping fences to try to escape the officers, and then we saw him where the camera is right now. We saw him run between those two buildings, and that looks like him right there. Is that him?
No, that's an officer. That's an officer. That's definitely
a police officer. Okay, so we don't.
He also had a bag. I noticed he had a bag with him, like a backpack, and he didn't want to lose that. He kept throwing it over whatever he was climbing.
Well, the question becomes where is he hiding? Because we saw him go there.
Right. There's a couple of spots. There's some tarps right there. If he's in this area, they'll probably take him into custody. He might actually be underneath a vehicle. This might be one of the ones where we see the canine come in there. But it almost kind of looked like one of the situations where this might have been, because we're listening to the Buena Park PD, and we're hearing them talk about, basically they're talking about this guy was asleep behind the wheel. So this might have been a crime of opportunity where maybe a homeless person took that vehicle and was basically maybe even living in it. They might have a suspect basically locked down in that area. I always watch these officers. They have a dangerous job. We watch those suspects fly over those walls, and now we have an officer climbing over a wall is probably the best way to do it. Again, we're just watching, and I couldn't even imagine doing that job that they're doing down there. Very dangerous indeed. But they're still trying to clear the area. They're getting information. I am here. It is very hectic down there. They're trying to locate where this guy is, but they basically know that he's in this one block area, so they are going to continue the search for him.
So
crazy.
This is, it looks like it's an apartment building, right? So you would think that the people who are living there, that?
Okay, guns are drawn here.
That's another officer, but they do have their weapons out. We're pretty sure that that suspect not armed, but you can clearly see that this person willing to keep running. Yeah, and Vinny's just kind of inching his way down there. You have to understand it's very difficult to see. You know, if he's in those bushes, we might not be able to see him, but the officers might have a better vantage point. And also, these guys are talking to other guys. They're not super familiar with law enforcement talking to other law enforcement. They're not super familiar with these roads, so they're basically just shouting out directions to get the other officers to kind of just block this suspect in. But it's a hectic situation for sure, and they definitely want to take this guy into custody. It is an apartment building, and you just got to kind of wonder, I mean, how desperate is this person? To maybe he might try to break into somebody's apartment or try to hide out. Well, so right now that's the fire or what's left of it. But,
well, you know what? This is for those who are watching, because you never know when and where something like this is going to happen. It's a good reminder to keep your doors locked.
Yes, definitely. And we did, Vinny was pointing out that there were some people outside the apartment building, probably unaware of what exactly was going on, but definitely were, you know, you just could read their body language that they wanted to get out of the area, probably seeing or hearing the lights and sirens of the officers arriving. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why they have the lights and sirens, is kind of to warn the public about what's going on out here. I don't believe that is the suspect, but definitely has a backpack. So you just kind of got to wonder, maybe this person, you know, is trying to be more clever than we think. But right now, not in custody as we understand it.
Let's go to Dennis. Dennis, so you've been watching this with us for the past hour and a half now. You know, most of the time, these guys get caught. There have been incidents where they get away. What's your experience? Talk a little bit about what you see happening and how this will play out.
Well, the majority of the times they do get caught. In this particular situation, they'll do a wide perimeter. They'll lock the area down. And they'll start doing a search. They'll bring in the canine, and they'll search. That one particular apartment building is where the initial focus is. But this individual could have slipped anywhere. But what they'll do is lock down the area and do a systematic search within that area. They need to get this guy into custody. With all the situation that took place with the stolen vehicle, et cetera, this individual, I'm sure if you look at the criminal records, been through the Gray Bar Hotel in the past, been through the criminal justice system in the past. I mean, this isn't just some casual individual who decided to steal a vehicle. So they will bring in whatever resources necessary, canine, et cetera, to lock it down and do a systematic search and to apprehend this individual. We saw him exit the vehicle, run, drop some items, pick them up, continue to run, disappeared into that apartment. I wouldn't be surprised if the individual is within that apartment building and secluding himself in that particular area. We see an officer running, chasing something.
Exactly. So there's activity going on down there. As if, you know, when you see that kind of flurry going on, Dennis, you figure they know something and they're taking action.
Exactly. But what they do is they want to bring in enough resources. They want to bring in enough units, ground units. And we see officers from different agencies just by the color of the uniform. But they got the ability of canine.
It looks like they may have him in custody, Dennis. It looks like they may have him in custody.
Let's go to Stu for a minute. Stu?
Yeah, no. Well, we've been listening, and you know, I'm watching and listening. The officers are saying unknown suspect, unknown, but this person clearly fighting with the law enforcement, and possibly when we see this person stand up, we'll be able to kind of get an idea if that was the suspect. But whoever this person was definitely was fighting with the officers there for a moment or two to go into custody. That makes it very suspicious. Right now, you can see this guy just kind of in custody. If I had to guess, I would say it's close. I'm always kind of amazed that when you see somebody running and in that type of activity, and then you see them in custody, I'm always the first one to go, is that the guy? But at any rate, this person now in custody, but definitely was fighting with officers there just for a moment, actually deputies and California Highway Patrol. So definitely a suspect in custody right now after a very bizarre, long pursuit with that truck catching fire there at the end. But as soon as that truck stopped, that suspect was out and running, and now in custody. And again, this all coming to an end out here. I believe this is in the Bellflower area, but it was what a pursuit. Wow.
It's hard to know
All right,
if
so
this is the individual.
We're-
I know that when the driver jumped out of the truck, he had a gray kind of thick jacket on, and it doesn't look like, I mean, he could have ditched the jacket, but it doesn't look like that.
Roxy, that could have been what was in the backpack. Remember, you brought it up too, and I was kind of curious what was so important in that backpack. Maybe it was a change of clothes.
Yeah, it could have been.
Yeah, and he had enough time, you know, when he got over that wall and we kind of lost him in the trees. He could have clearly changed clothes, and you saw him just kind of playing this nonchalant, walking across the parking lot, and then officers, you know, taking him into custody. The fact that he was fighting those officers, if you're just walking and these officers come running up, you're going to be like, oh, what's up, you know? But this guy clearly was resisting a little bit there, so it kind of leads you to believe that this is the suspect, and of course now complying. So it definitely seems that they did get the right guy.
All right. Well, certainly officers and Stu, you know from past experience, body language is everything.
Yes.
And you watch how these officers are reacting to whatever's going on at the moment. And we saw that flurry of activity there. We eventually saw them taking down this person to the ground, and now the person's in custody. And now it seems as though the officers who just moments before had their guns drawn seem to be much more at ease, and things seem to be much more calm. Is that your reading of the situation, Stu?
Well, definitely that suspect in cuffs, and basically you can kind of just read his body language. It's defeat, and we all knew that's where it was going to end. And thank goodness nobody was hurt, including that suspect. If he would have waited much longer inside that vehicle, that, you know, firefighters will tell you that smoke is what's deadly. You know, the fire is gonna hurt you, but the smoke might kill you long before that fire gets to you. And that was thick black smoke. So, you know, in the end, it ended the best way. That suspect in custody, nobody was seriously hurt. Sadly, you all lost one of their vehicles, but you know, this is pretty much the best outcome for this chase.
All right. Well, this pursuit is certainly coming to an end in a way that the best possible way. Obviously, the best way would have been for the person not to have stolen the truck to begin with, but since that did not occur and the truck was stolen,
got hurt. I mean,
yeah, that's the best possible outcome. That no one got hurt. That truck, as big as it is, 26-footer, the largest you can rent from U-Haul, could have done a lot of damage had it crashed into anything. But the truck itself obviously destroyed, as you can see.
What's left of it.
There's not much left of the cab itself. So Dennis Zine, going to bring you back in now. This again.
Just want to say
we want
thank
to tell you
for
that
your time this morning and spending the last almost 2 hours with us.
Also, Sergeant Escamilla from the Buena Park PD, want to thank him for his commentary and insight as well. And Stu Mundell, of course, excellent work up in the sky from Sky Fox.
Thank you.